Do we really need another extraction shooter? Haven't we had enough? Isn't this genre getting a little too oversaturated? Well, no. And in my opinion, they haven't even come close to peaking. Let me explain. Almost every genre of games has more than one quote-unquote big game in them. There were a million battle royales that came out in the wake of PUBG until it mostly settled on the big four. And each of these games is largely similar to each other at a 10,000-foot view. They are all essentially just last man standing wins. But they are different enough to appeal to different gamers within the genre and can provide a vastly different experience to gamers that enjoy battle royales. And this has happened across most genres. Your more classic first-person shooters always had Call of Duty and Battlefield and Medal of Honor and Halo, and even TAC shooters have Counter-Strike and Valorant. Before we get to the meat and potatoes of this video, we gotta talk about something. The oversaturated genre argument has always kind of baffled me. Should a good game not get made just because other games in that genre exist? Almost surely, if you wanted the devs to make something other than extraction shooters, wouldn't they be working on games in other saturated genres? Like, we undoubtedly have 100 times more RPGs than extraction shooters, and yet some of the best RPGs ever are still coming out. In the last 3 years alone, all of these games have been released. There are awesome devs making awesome games in every single genre, and there are also greedy devs pushing out slop games in every single genre. I feel like nowadays we kind of treat genres as like lifeboats with limited amounts of space. If a new battle royale comes out, we almost act like it has to kick one of the other battle royales out of the boat to make room for it. Now, that might be worth a video on its own, but the point is, it seems like whenever a new genre pops onto the scene, there is always an arms race for developers to create a game that will hopefully be one of those tentpole games in the genre. And that requires threading the needle between striking while the iron is hot by getting a game out as soon as possible, and taking their time to understand what really makes that new genre so fun and special, and then create something that's truly unique. And extraction shooters haven't really had that genre maturity yet. It feels like a lot of the games so far have been in the strike while the iron is hot camp. Some games like The Cycle Frontier and Marauders try to radically shake up the genre with sci-fi aesthetics and brand new mechanics, but ultimately those games fail to really capture the essence of an extraction shooter and hold onto an audience long term. We've also had large existing IPs try to dip their toe into the market with games like Call of Duty DMZ and Battlefield's Hazard Zone. But it was pretty clear that these were just them trying to get in on what they thought maybe was a cash cow, and they never really took the time to really understand the genre or try to respect it. And then we've had a couple of games try to much more closely mimic the formula that we know works. Delta Force and Arena Breakout Infinite are probably the two most successful extraction shooters that we have so far that aren't Tarkov. They are games set in the modern day with modern weapons and follow much more in line with Tarkov's high-level mechanics. And to be honest, I really enjoyed both of these games. When Delta Force first came out, I put almost 300 hours into that, and I recently hopped back into Arena Breakout Infinite, and it really blew me away how much fun I've been having. The unfortunate problem with these games, however, is, well, here are screenshots from the 4 most recent extraction shooters I've played. They all kind of look and feel the same, and the way games look is definitely not everything. But it is no wonder why all these games are constantly compared to Tarkov. And I'm of two minds on this. On one hand, I hate the comparison game because sometimes taking something and then tweaking it a little bit can create something really fun. Just because Tarkov exists doesn't mean it's perfect. And a lot of people have been introduced to this genre through games like Delta Force and Arena Breakout Infinite. On the other hand though, I kind of get it, because it is pretty clear that these games used Tarkov as their starting point instead of using the core themes of the genre as their starting point. Arena Breakout Infinite feels like free-to-play Tarkov because I think that's kind of exactly what they set out to make. Think of it this way. If every battle royale that came out after Fortnite thought that the only reason people liked BRs was because of the building mechanics, well, that would be a gross misunderstanding of why BRs are so fun, and it would feel bad to have every battle royale have that mechanic forced into it. And that's kind of how it feels right now with extraction shooters. It seems like everyone thinks that in order for an extraction shooter to work, they need to be like Tarkov. We haven't really had a game come along that truly understands what's at the core of the extraction shooter genre, and has taken the time to dissect exactly what makes this genre so fun and so addicting, and then make something completely new that is purpose-built to deliver on those core principles. Until now. Raiders quickly became my most anticipated game of 2025 in just a few days of playing it during their tech test in the spring. And the crazy thing is I wasn't even excited for this game when it dropped. After being burned by so many extraction shooters over the past few years, I, like many Tarkov Stockholm Syndrome survivors, looked at it and saw a game with weird guns and robot enemies and just kind of thought, meh. And I absolutely hated the thought of a PvP extraction shooter in third person. And still, in just 4 days, Arc Raiders completely turned me around to now thinking this might be the most intentional, unique, and fun extraction shooter we have had yet. Embark have spent years in the kitchen cooking up this masterpiece, and you can tell. This is the first time I feel like the devs peeled one more layer of the onion back. Instead of just seeing that Tarkov is successful and deciding to do what Tarkov does, they decided to dive into why extraction shooters are fun and then use those principles to create a brand new experience. And in this video, I'm going to try to explain how.
This game just looks so good. Like, look at this, dude.
The reason I wanted to make this video is because a really consistent theme I've seen from people who have not had the chance to play Arc Raiders yet is I don't get why people are so hyped for this game. And I totally understand that. What's interesting though is that on the flip side, one of the most common things I see from people who have played is, oh my God, this game is amazing. It's so much better than I thought it would be. There's just something about this game that's different, something that you feel almost immediately once you start playing, and I think I figured it out. If there is one thing that I want to say about Arc Raiders, it's that everything is intentional. They knew the feeling that they wanted you to have while playing this game, and they made every single aspect of the game around supporting that. That care, that vision, that intentionality is why this game feels different. Also, and I can't stress enough how important this is, the game is fun. I genuinely felt like a kid again. I haven't had this much fun playing a game since the Halo LAN parties at my friend's house when we were kids. The amount of times in just 4 days I yelled, oh my God, no way you can actually do that, reminded me of why I love gaming so much. But I do want to dive into why I think this game is so fun and what elements specifically of the game best display how intentionally it was designed. First and foremost, Arc Raiders feels extremely fresh. In my opinion, this game rides a perfect line between familiar to what we expect from extraction shooters, but different enough to be classified as its own thing. It's sci-fi, but we're not flying around in spaceships shooting aliens. The game is set on Earth with environments that feel familiar. The maps are gorgeous and do a great job of being both immersive and highly playable. Arc Raiders is definitely not a milsim game, but it doesn't necessarily feel wholly unrealistic either. The guns and gear all feel like decades of people scrapping things together with the tools that they have. The movement feels weighty and grounded. I mean, these animations for going into a full sprint or how people ragdoll when they die, they feel so satisfying and they feel really grounded. And the AI in the game being robots that took over the world doesn't really seem too far-fetched. Actually, it might even seem a little prophetic. And one of my favorite things about this game is how it essentially just throws a bunch of tools at you and says, hey, you figure out how you want to play this game. It's a game with room for multiple playstyles, and it encourages experimentation. For example, one of the utility grenades in the game is called the Showstopper, a grenade that blows up in a ball of electricity. I hadn't really seen a use for it since my main focus was PvP, and I thought it would be pretty situational in that context. Until we were fighting one of these mother truckers right here. If you haven't played Arc Raiders yet, then you don't understand how much one of these little spawns of Satan can ruin your life. 1,000,000 HP and rockets that deal an insane amount of damage. Once this guy sets his sights on you, you have a problem. So, with a decent understanding of how the movement works in this game, and during a fight with one of these bad boys, while still looking for a use for the Showstopper grenade, this happened.
Yeah. I've got 2 Showstoppers. Ride 'em, cowboy! Yeah! Wait, who's blasting me right now? Oh, this other bot. I was like, what the frick? Let's go, Jesse!
Massive!
Classic, dude.
And now is the perfect time to talk about the Arc in Arc Raiders. The AI in this game are maybe the best AI enemies in any PvPvE game ever made. By making the AI robots instead of other humans, it opens up endless possibilities to create the experience that you want and solves a host of problems that other games face. In many other extraction shooters, all of the PvE enemies that you fight are other humans, and it's really hard to create dynamic range in experiences you have with the AI when they are humans because they will always be compared to real humans. It's also really important to note here that PvE enemies have more than one purpose in these types of games. Sometimes they are there to drain resources or give your position away to another player. Sometimes they are supposed to be hard and an actual threat, or maybe they're supposed to be tanky and create extended gunfights that draw in PvP. And sometimes they are supposed to be raid-defining events that provide some of the best loot and most unique experiences. This is all extremely hard to do with human AI. If the AI feels too basic, people will complain that the humans seem stupid. If they're too tanky, it feels super weird to shoot a guy in the head 10 times without him dying. When the AI are supposed to be a threat to the player, it can be frustrating because they might have the reaction time or accuracy that no real human would ever have. And on top of all that, as the player, it can be sometimes hard to tell what experience any given AI is supposed to be providing because they all look so similar. Arc Raiders completely avoids all of these problems by making the AI in the game robots. Each and every one of the Arc was purpose-built to create a very specific experience. And since they are all distinct sizes and shapes, the player intuitively learns them as they play the game. Snitches are there to alert other Arc of your presence. Hornets and Wasps are there to poke and pester you and often require you to give away your position to destroy them. Ticks and Robots are there to provide PvE encounters indoors. Rocketeers, Bison, and Bastions are basically boss fights that take a lot of time or specialized equipment to deal with. And the Queen is essentially a raid boss that might take a group of people an entire raid to defeat. And they are just made so goddamn well. They interact with the world around them exactly how you think they should. And this actually brings up a really interesting point in the conversation around realism. Let me ask you something. What is more realistic? Seeing a quadcopter drone struggling to maintain flight after one of its motors was shot out because it is still entirely focused on completing its mission of killing you, or seeing a human enemy run directly into a wall for 20 minutes because his pathing got bugged out? One is something real, acting in a very unrealistic way, and one is something that might not actually be real, but it's acting exactly how you think it would if it were real. And watching a drone struggle to fly after losing a motor, or watching a Bastion shift its weight around after you shoot out one of its legs, these things feel so real, and it's just pure cinema. The team that worked on the Arc in this game already deserve a raise, and it's one of the many examples of how this game understands what it wants to accomplish and executes on it perfectly. And while I do think that this might be the most industry-leading PvE I've ever seen, we now got to talk about the other type of enemy that you will fight: other players. PvP is an essential part of extraction shooters. The ever-present threat that another real person can come along and end your raid and steal your loot is what makes these games so tense. And the thought of you running into another player, killing them, and taking their loot is what makes these games so addicting. But because PvP is such a core part of the experience, it has to be handled well. Because while it is part of what defines the genre, it can also be what kills a game when handled poorly. And there are a lot of disparate game mechanics that all come together to determine if the PvP in your game is fun or annoying. The gunplay in Arc Raiders feels amazing so far, although it did take a little bit to get used to coming from games like Tarkov. And that is because it benefits from sidestepping some of that hardcore realism a bit in the same way that the AI does. Instead of lasers, flashlights, 60-round mags, and 12 different ammo types for each gun, they chose to refine the combat and gunplay down to a simpler form. The guns look like they've been cobbled together in a garage, and that actually serves a purpose. Lower magazine capacities and the lack of long-range optics means that they can more precisely control how fights go down. And there still is complexity there to the gunplay though. Each gun has its own weapon mods that can be attached or detached and looted during raids, and each weapon can actually be upgraded several times using materials found in raids to upgrade their base stats. They have struck a really cool balance here. The combat rewards good positioning, good shot placement, and using map knowledge to your advantage to close the distance on your enemy. It also promotes creative thinking with all the utility that the game provides, like smokes and zip lines. It respects the player's time by drastically reducing the ability to just get one shot, but also respects the pace of a good fight by not allowing anybody to be a walking tank. Speaking of respecting the player's time, a game's spawn system is another element to the PvP that not many people talk about. Spending the time to gear up, figure out what quests you want to do, load into a raid, and then just get bodied by a guy that spawns right behind you is an awful feeling. Arc Raiders actually has a pretty unique system here, where instead of spawning everybody at the start of the raid, there are basically 2 waves of spawns. This allows them to control a lot. They can reduce the immediate spawn fights because they don't have to spawn everybody so close, and it allows them to keep the raids relatively populated throughout. Many other extraction shooters struggle with everybody fighting right off spawn, and then the raid can feel dead just 5 minutes in because so many of the players are either already dead from those spawn fights or are leaving the raid with all the loot from those fights. In my experience with Arc Raiders, it feels pretty good. Not overcrowded, but not empty. Now, there are definitely some instances where this system might cause some problems. If you are trying to loot a specific POI or use a specific key, if you get into the raid in that second wave of spawns, you might not get that opportunity. But in the tech test, I never really noticed any of those issues and never even really noticed when I got in that second wave of spawns. I personally am glad they are trying to tackle this problem and hope that they can optimize it to minimize any potential issues. Now, once you do get into combat with somebody, Arc Raiders uses a traditional health plus shield system. But once again, the whole combat system seems to be balanced for that sweet spot of a fight lasting long enough to breathe and create cool moments, but not so long that you feel like you can't kill somebody. The higher tier shields absolutely provide some additional health for you, but not so much that you can get sloppy. In many other games in the past, if you saw someone with purple or gold shields, you just knew that there was no way you could win unless you also had that gear, and it did not feel like that in Arc Raiders during the tech test. Also, there are no colored hit markers either that tell you what tier of shield someone is wearing, and this game definitely doesn't need them. A good extraction shooter is about riding the razor's edge of good gear mattering enough that you want to bring it into raids, but not so much that you can rely on it to be unkillable. This almost always comes with a huge trade-off, however. Slightly longer time to kill feels great until you are a solo player who constantly runs up against squads. But if you are someone that enjoys gaming solo, boy do I have some good news for you. Solo play is an extremely important and oftentimes overlooked aspect of PvP games right now. Not everybody always has somebody to play with every single time they sit down and game, and people are tired of being forced into parties of 3 in order to experience games. Well, you can turn squad fill off is not an acceptable response to the solo player community. Games like Escape from Tarkov, while not entirely solo friendly, avoid some of this problem because of how quick the time to kill can be. You can eliminate a squad of players with 4 bullets if you play your cards right, but that kind of just kicks the problem down the road because that strength can also become a weakness. It means that if you're a solo and you're in a fight with a squad, that fast TTK can be used against you. And it also kind of promotes a gameplay style of really just sitting and waiting until somebody crosses your path because largely whoever gets the first shots off wins. Other games have gone the entire opposite direction with full-on solo queues, but that inevitably fragments the player base a little bit and removes some of the tension that extraction shooters are known for. Part of the fun is never knowing if the guy that you just got has friends coming to avenge him or if he's a solo. Arc Raiders has a really unique approach to this problem. Their matchmaking algorithm will try to prioritize putting solos in games together. Now, this is not a separate solo queue. It's one playlist that everybody queues into, but while it is matching, it will try to take a large group of the solos that are queuing at any given time and put them together. This, at least during the tech test, seemed to be a really elegant solution to this problem. It's not a complete guarantee that the raider you hear is for sure solo, so you have to be on guard and you have to play carefully. But it dramatically reduces the frequency of you getting completely slammed by squads raid after raid after raid. And if you do end up being a duo or a trio in a game that is mostly full of solos, you would never know it. You didn't queue into any other playlist, and you would probably go about your whole raid assuming that any raider you heard had teammates with them. It's another way for them to control and preserve the experience that they want the players to have without fragmenting the player base or without any one group of players feeling left behind by the game. And my favorite part of this whole thing is that the game gives you the tools to work together. Arc Raiders has proximity chat, which allows you to talk to other people and potentially team up. But in addition to that, there's an item in the game called the defibrillator, which allows you to not only quick revive your downed teammates, but it also allows you to revive downed enemies. This creates some really awesome moments where maybe one player kills another, and then you can kind of have this break where that player is downed and you can talk to each other and maybe decide to work together. It has already created some insanely memorable moments, and I think it's one of the most genius things they've added to this game. Yes, you might get betrayed and people might try to shit talk to you once they down you, but the opportunities for insanely hype moments are more than worth it.
Where's your friends? just want to go see my chicken. I just want to have.
All right. Crawl in the extract. Crawl in the extract. Go see your chicken, sir. He beckons you.
Thank you. He's just so lonely. He needs his fruit, right? If nobody's there, he won't eat it.
Get in there.
Get in there.
All right. Be on ye merry way.
All right, good job, guys. I'm proud of you.
You can
look
see
at
it.
what your teammate dies. All right, don't get greedy.
Yeah, and just never forget what happened.
Never forget.
That shit on. That shit on.
Now, with all this talk of PvP and gunplay, we finally have to address the elephant in the room, the third-person perspective. This is far and away the single most common concern I hear about ARC raiders. People have really strong opinions about third-person PvP games, and to be honest, I can't really judge them because I was right there too. And then 4 days with this game completely changed my perspective. Ultimately, this is going to be a subjective thing. Some people, no matter how good a game is, are just going to prefer games set in the first person, and that is completely respectable. However, the reason I waited until this point of the video to talk about this is hopefully by now that you can see that Embark have crafted this game with an almost unprecedented amount of care and intentionality. They didn't just wake up and think, let's try this game in third person and see if it works. It was crafted for third person. And you may not realize on the surface how many different decisions and game mechanics exist to reduce or completely remove some of your main concerns with third-person PvP games. First, it sets this game apart. Remember those screenshots we showed at the beginning of the video? ARC Raiders looks and feels completely different. And I promise you that even with robot enemies and a post-apocalyptic setting, if this game was set in first person, so many people would have just written it off as Tarkov with robot enemies. Third person is a huge part of what immerses you in this world and a big part of what sets this game apart. But it isn't just about vibes though. I know that the main concern with third person in PvP games is that people just stand still, corner peeking, waiting for somebody to walk by, and then you just kind of gank them without that poor soul ever really having a chance to fight back. And that is true to a degree. Many third person games have devolved into that, but I have 2 counterpoints to that. 1, this exact same thing happens in first person games too. I don't know if you've played Escape from Tarkov recently, but one of, if not the most prevalent strategies in the game is ratting. People have devoted their entire lives to finding spots to hide and do this exact same thing. They find a spot where they can see you, you can't see them, and they sit and hide and wait for somebody to walk in front of them, and then they gank you without you ever having a chance to fight back. What a little goddamn gremlin, brother. And my second and more important counterpoint is that almost every single game mechanic that we've talked about so far has kept this third-person problem in mind. The fact that many of the ARC are drones means that since they are so high up in the sky, they can and will spot players that are hiding around corners and start to attack them, which lets you know of their position and it forces them to move. The time to kill is balanced in a way that even if somebody does get the drop on you, you almost always have the ability to fight back. There are also so many utility items in the game that can help you flush out players, draw AI towards enemy players, or provide ways for you to move and traverse the map to avoid these players. You do have to play third-person games differently for sure. You can't just hold corners and stand out in hallways, and that is something to remember. It's just part of the skill ceiling of this type of game. And it's also important to remember that you also have that same ability to third-person peek corners as well. Similar to how the meta in a lot of first-person shooter games is just jiggle peeking corners for information, you just have to apply that same skill to third-person peeking corners to make sure that nobody is there. It's pretty much the same thing. But like I said, I totally understand that this is subjective, and I'm not trying to convince you that you need to love this game because it's in third person, but I do think that a lot of people have had bad experiences with other third-person games and might not realize how fully fleshed out the experience in ARC Raiders is. If you are on the fence about this game strictly because of third person, I highly encourage you to try the game out if you ever get the opportunity.
He's looking at me.
Got him.
Oh,
Fool got him.
Go, dude. Damn, bro.
I hope by now you are seeing a trend here, and I'm going to say it again. The best part about this game is just the fact that everything feels so intentional. They know the game they want to make, and they know the feeling they want the players to have, and they make sure that everything supports that. And all this is just the tip of the iceberg. I could literally talk about this stuff for hours, but I need the mighty YouTube algorithm to love me, so we are going to go lightning round for the rest of this. The sound design in this game is so goated. Every sound, from prying open an airdrop to hearing a flare pop in the distance when you down an enemy to the panic-inducing sound of a bastion aggroing you, are all equally unique, immersive, and just phenomenal. And it's not just all set dressing. So many games nowadays have great sound design, but it ends up just being audio vomit. There's 14 different audio sources all playing at the same time, and you can't hear what you want to hear. Arc Raiders hit the nail on the head, where the sound in the game is good enough to be noticed, but it doesn't get in your way. It can be a genuine skill check to hear something in the distance and know how to interpret it and react accordingly. As with all extraction shooters, an important part of the experience is, well, extracting. And Arc Raiders put their own flair on this too. The main extraction points are these bunker entrances that require you to hit a terminal, wait a few seconds for it to open, then hit another terminal and wait for it to close. Now this creates a very distinct audio cue and often visual cue as well, so you gotta stay frosty once you get to the extract. But what's cool about these is that when those gates close, whoever is in there is extracting. And I mean anyone. So if you play your cards right, you can sneak in or talk your way into extracting with another squad. You can even extract if you are in the down state as long as you are inside. And some crazy important tech is you can actually hit the terminal inside to initiate the extract when you are downed. Crawling into an extract, hitting the terminal, and leaving before the guy that downed you can close the distance is an insanely butt-clenching moment, but a moment you will not soon forget. I've also mentioned utility in this video a couple of times, and man, this might be the only game I have ever wanted to have one of every single type of grenade or consumable on me at all times. There are so many different types of grenades that can do damage, lure the arc away, or completely stop the arc in their tracks. Zip lines and grapple hooks can create some absolutely insane traversal strats. There's mines, deployable cover, and even a wand you can hold over your head to become invisible to the arc. There is so much here, and it all promotes experimentation and creates fights that are dynamic and unexpected.
Jesse, it's
I'm
just
so
that.
sorry. This is just.
Jesse,
I just need
I'm
to.
actually allergic to sand. I need to get onto
yeah,
the roof.
no, it's okay. I know
Jesse.
normally I would, but I'm
No, Jesse.
just right now.
Jesse, the problem is that I need to get up there because. Oh, thanks.
Naturally, one of the most addicting parts of an extraction shooter is looting. We play these games because we're little loot gremlins that want to find things to sell. And there's a lot to loot here, and I was actually surprised at how useful just about everything is. So many of the materials are needed for upgrades or crafts, and materials can actually be upcycled into more rare materials, meaning that there's almost always a reason to pick up just about everything, which can be a little overwhelming, but I think that is good. Games where 50% of the items are only needed in the first 5 hours of the game get really stale really quickly. You are always having to make game time decisions about what you should take and what you should drop, and I think that feels really good. Also, if you're on console, you are in luck. This is far and away the most optimized looting UI for console players. I think PC gamers coming from games like Tarkov might think it's a little oversimplified, but in my opinion, it checks all the boxes. It's intuitive, it allows you to take a lot of loot out of the raid, and it is designed so that the maximum amount of players can enjoy it. That's a W for me. And on the point of looting, there's also a pretty detailed crafting system in the game that allows you to craft just about everything that you need for your raids. And since there is no player market, you are constantly needing resources to craft those things, which continues to push you into raids to farm more resources. There's even a crafting menu in raid. It does take a little bit extra resources, but if you forget to bring meds or maybe you run out during a fight, you are not just entirely out of luck. There's a hideout in your stash where you do all this crafting, and it is separated into a few modules that can all be upgraded. And you even have your own chicken, Scrappy, who will farm up resources for you while you are out on your raids. Scrappy's the goat. Also, you know what else is extremely refreshing about Arc Raiders? It is not mother-flippin' early access. This is a finished game. That is so unheard of these days that during the summer, the community was begging them to release an unfinished version of the game just so that we can get our hands on it. And like the absolute chads that they are, Embark said, "Nah fam, the game releases when it's ready." I am by no means anti-early access. So many amazing games were made because of that practice, but the opposite is also true, and it just feels so refreshing to be excited for a game that will be finished when we get our hands on it. Arc Raiders might actually be the only extraction shooter to ever launch in a 1.0 state. And Embark have shown that they are literally gods at not only taking the time they need to finish the game, but at also showing the community how they are shaping the game. They've done a few community updates in their Discord since the tech test in the spring, and I encourage you to go read through some of them. It is a literal masterclass at communicating their vision for what they want, how the data they've collected informs their decisions, and how they are still willing to learn from the players and adapt systems to be more fun and engaging while not compromising their original vision. It's awesome. This whole video has been pulled from my experiences with the game based solely on one tech test. And yet, there's actually so much more detail I could have gone through about each of these mechanics. The depth and attention to detail is refreshing and extremely exciting. And this is just the beginning. We know from some of the recent trailers that there are more maps, more enemies, more social features that we haven't even explored yet. It's important to note here also that since all of my thoughts are based on what was essentially a beta, any and every mechanic that I've gone through might change slightly or dramatically before the actual launch of the game on October 30th. But after what I've played so far and seen from them, I have full trust that Embark will land this plane. But I definitely do still have some questions. They've stated in the past that they won't have wipes with this game, which can be a good or bad thing depending on how you look at it, but it definitely means that they need to have a good idea of how to keep the game interesting long term. Games like this without wipes can sometimes end with a certain portion of the player base just having infinite money and infinite gear, and nothing really matters anymore if you just have everything. We also haven't really seen any part of the end game yet, which is totally understandable, the game's not even out yet, but it begs the question, what happens when I'm done questing? Is there more long-term meta progression to keep players engaged? Will seasonal events or changes be enough to keep people along for the ride? The Steam page lists some information about a ranking system that could be a part of their plans, but we don't know much. What we do know, though, is that Arc Raiders is a game that knows exactly what it wants to be, and it is a game that was made so obviously with a ton of love and passion. In a genre that is so often known for extremely steep learning curves and needing 4 additional monitors just so you can have all your spreadsheets up, this is a game that feels intuitive. A game that feels like it's already thought of all the things you're going to think of and made sure to put those things in game. And we desperately need a game like this in this genre. If you have been wondering if Arc Raiders is going to kill Escape from Tarkov or kill Arena Breakout Infinite, you are asking the wrong questions. It is good and healthy to have different games doing different things in a genre. Every time a new game comes out, you don't have to Indiana Jones swap out your old game with the new one. I don't know if anybody's told you this, but you can like 2 games. I personally think that Arc Raiders has a ton of potential to finally do something new in the genre, and potential to bring this genre to a whole new audience. Arc Raiders is launching on PC and console at the same time, and console gamers have had so few extraction shooters to choose from in the past, and oftentimes those console ports just seem like such an afterthought. Ultimately though, no game is for everyone. I'm not trying to convince you that you need to be excited for this game, but I wanted to try and explain why I am excited for this game, and try to explain how they managed to convince me I was wrong about it. Anyways, I cannot wait to play more Arc Raiders, and I'm excited to see what Embark has been cooking up all this time. Thank you so much for watching. If you are as excited about this game as I am, hop in the Discord down below. It's going to be a great place to find people to play with, and I'm going to be posting all sorts of information and guides, stuff there as well. Drop a like on the video and maybe sub to the channel if you want more Arc Raiders content. I have tons of ideas for more videos once the game comes out. I appreciate you watching, and I will definitely see y'all on the next one.